Welcome to RetroLogic. I'm Sam Wagers, here with John Cummins and guest for this week, Shannon, SpiderShan, from the Discord. Dan could not make it, he has a sore throat. But how are you guys doing? What have you been buying or playing lately? We'll start with Shannon, since he's the guest.
Hey, glad to be here. And let's see here. Recently picked up some games from our Discord, actually, that people were selling. So I finally picked up Golden Sun. So I don't have to live with that on my record of never having played that for some odd reason. That one just slipped by me originally, and I've always wanted to get to it. Yeah, right, exactly. So I got to have time to play the first one too. And then picked up just some other little ones. Picked up Yoshi for Game Boy, Dr. Mario for Game Boy. I have them both on the NES versions, but I think it's kind of fun to pop them into Game Boy as well. And then Donkey Kong Country 2 for Game Boy Advance, because for some reason I didn't have that one. So
there you go.
Yep. And then the other big one is Fire Emblem Engage, which I have started but haven't been able to put a ton of time into yet. I'm liking the battles. I'm not sold on the story quite yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, that seems to be what I'm hearing a lot. I also picked up Engage, mostly because from everything I've heard about it, I realized I was just going to have to play it myself to judge accurately. So I kind of had to know, and I didn't trust reviews to tell me. So, But that's been sitting there because I am still loving Tactics Ogre Reborn on the Switch. Should be finishing that up soon, but I've also been picking up a lot of Game Boy stuff. Obviously, we'll be talking about the Analog Pocket later, and with that in, Game Boy games are just on my radar a lot. And Dan was selling some, so I got those in. So from Dan, I got Battle Arena Toshinden, DK King of Swing, and Pocket Bomberman. Along with some other stuff I'd been picking up. I know I'd showed off Primitive Princess in the Discord. That's a Japan-only Sunsoft puzzle platformer that's kind of fun. And also a couple other things I picked up as a result of a little research I was doing. So we'll come back and circle back to that. But yeah, definitely just a lot of fresh pickups for me. How about you, John? What have you been picking up or playing lately?
I've grabbed so many things. I'm just going to rattle off a couple. I picked up the Famicom version of Legend of Valkyrie after Shannon and I talked about it one night, and then I was like, man, I just need to grab the original now. We went into the rabbit hole, and he grabbed the ROM, and we just started checking it out. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to have to buy it now.
The game is just weirdly addicting. I don't know what it is. I definitely prefer it to the arcade version we were playing.
All I've played is the one on the TurboGrafx, because that's on the Mini as well.
I think that's the arcade one.
I think so too.
I think there might be some differences, but yeah.
Well, the arcade one is this. The arcade version is the sequel to the Famicom game.
Gotcha.
And you'll know right away the graphics difference.
It's like some weird cross between like Dragon Warrior, like map almost looks like, or kind of top down.
Yeah,
but then if you get into a random battle, it's almost like Zelda 2, where you kind of go, when you get into a battle on the map, and then it just kind of cuts to side scroller. So yeah.
Let's see, and I also grabbed some merch from the All In store. That's worth mentioning. They've got stickers and shirts and all kinds of stuff over there right now. And then I grabbed some things from Dan as well. I think I grabbed Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland. I think I got the other Bomberman game that Sam didn't grab. I think it was Max 2 Red.
I probably would have if you didn't, but I was like, I was pretty much looking at it like, hey, you know, Dan's looking to sell some stuff. I'm looking to buy Game Boy games. And I'm like, why in the world do I not own a single portable Bomberman game? Like, I should get at least one of these, but I was happy to let you have, you know, the one Bomberman game you apparently don't have.
I think I also got Metal Slug Advance from him and Dragon Warrior.
I was gonna say
1 and 2 and 3.
You stole the Dragon Warrior 1 too. Just saying. You're faster than I am.
I was quick on that. And then I've been buying. Man, every time Zach puts up a lot, I buy at least a handful of things to fill in my collection from him. I bought. I just recently got a complete in-box copy of Tony Hawk for the Game Boy Color. Completed my Metroid collection with the 5-screw version of the original Metroid. The only one I had was the second version, the yellow box. So I completed that. That was the last Metroid game that I needed. I even have the Famicom disc version of the original. And then I grabbed every time he gets something, I grab at least 2 or 3 things from him. It seems like weekly I get a little Zach box come in the mail. But too many things. I also picked up Fire Emblem Engage, and so far I don't have enough time into it to really comment on it, but I'm not feeling it in the way that I did Three Houses. Like, Three Houses was really fast, like off the launch, just like really good story, like get you engaged. No pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I need to put more time into it. It's definitely on my list of things to play. I just got to step away from Fire and Ice and other things that we're playing for Retro Rewind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, Fire and Ice. I have put in quite a bit of time recently again into that. Just one of those games that I'm like, I'll just pick it up and play, a few levels or whatever, and then next thing I know, it'll be like an hour later, 2 hours later.
Yeah, Fire and Ice being the next Retro Rewind game. So for those that don't know, that is our current Retro. Yeah. So I guess current being
soon.
Show to be recorded. So I guess that's what I was thinking of as next.
Yeah.
Retro Rewind, our look back with community members on different games, usually ones that are pretty easily accessible, since Fire and Ice is on the NSO app on the Switch. Historically, not very accessible, very pricey game.
Yeah,
but lots of things going on in RetroLogic land, because RetroLogic is not just a podcast; it is also a community of retro gamers. We have an active, friendly, and free Discord with giveaways, contests, deals that, trades that we're making with each other, and Plock memes occasionally. Haven't seen those in a while, but you never know when they might resurface, and so much more. And you can find links to that at our website, retrologic.games, where you can also find the blog, which you may have forgotten about because I haven't been posting a lot of stuff until recently. So I have resumed the developer retrospective, and I'm very happy to announce that this most recent one is on Quintet Co. Ltd. They are the makers of such games as Soul Blazer, Terranigma, ActRaiser, and Robotrek. So that one was kind of queued up for a while. I think I had to sort of just be a little bit more realistic with myself, motivate myself, and say, okay, I'm not going to have time to play every game that this company has made. I can't even afford to buy Soul Blazer right now. So I'm going to go ahead and write it. And I'm pretty happy with that. And I do intend to put more content to the blog in the future. because I'm pretty proud of it. I really want to put more focus and attention on the blog moving forward and just get some more out. It's actually kind of a New Year's resolution for me, I guess. I don't do super specific goals, but I usually have like a skill I want to improve over the course of the year. And so this year, that skill is writing. So the blog is a good way for me to do that. So check that out at retrologic.games/blog. The link's in the Discord as well if you're a Discord member. And yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if there are other companies that you would like a retrospective on, and I will see if I have any notable experience with them or things to say about them or can find cool information about them. Because Quintet definitely left a mark. They're another one that really faded into obscurity pretty quickly. And a lot of that was because of what was happening with Enix at the time. But you can read more about that there.
To do that, you need to join the Discord.
Yes.
to
join the Discord,
posts.
Definitely.
We just recently had a bunch of people join.
Fun. I mean, you can always, I'm on Twitter. I'm not super active on Twitter, but I'm there at MoleThird, or actually at Third Mole. MoleThird? No. I am both MoleThird and Third Mole. That's my alt account. I think the one that's more active is MoleThird. Anyway, you can at me if you want to. But yeah, there's all kinds of things going on. Streaming is also something that I've been continuing with my playthrough of Mega Man Battle Network 2, which I actually did roll credits on this most recent stream. I'm not streaming tonight since I'm on the road for work. I'm away from my streaming setup, but I am able to record, thankfully. So credits rolled, but there is, of course, post-game content to explore in Battle Network 2, which will be next Monday. And the day after that is February 14th. And Tuesdays has always been a day I used to stream. And in keeping with a promise that you probably thought I forgot about, that you probably forgot about, I will be streaming Hamtaro Heartbreak on Valentine's Day, February 14th, around 7 p.m. Eastern. So you can check that out at the RetroLogic Twitch channel. That is RetroLogic Games on Twitch. So, since I've been talking a long time, John, can you fill us in on what's been going on with On Topic Retro and Retro Rewind?
Yeah, so we're just recently wrapping up Fire and Ice, which was the month of January's Retro Rewind game. And we should be recording an episode on that in a couple days. So if you're listening to this, probably a day or two after you're hearing this, you'll probably be seeing an episode on that come up. I'm not sure who all I have coming on that to talk about it yet. But there'll be a couple of people. It'll be a good episode. Recently, we just did the Legend of Valkyrie, which is the current... since we've... it's been a little while since we've recorded a show. Legend of Valkyrie was the show before the last episode. We actually just recently did an episode on Smash 64 that's up right now.
Smash 64, awesome.
Smash 64, yeah. We get into the weeds a little bit on that one. We talk about an event called Slam Fest 99. So you'll have to listen to the episode to find out a little bit more about that. It's a crazy deal that I didn't even know existed. So definitely fun talking to those guys about Smash 64. And then for the month of February, we will be playing Tetris for the Game Boy. Really, if you don't have any other way to play Tetris, or if you don't have the Game Boy version of Tetris, Tetris is Tetris. As long as you're playing somewhere, you can talk about Tetris.
Yeah, just maybe don't play Tetris Attack, because that is kind of completely different.
Yeah, no, it needs to be Tetris in some form or fashion, but this show will specifically be on the Game Boy version of Tetris. So we'll be talking about that in a couple days.
All right. And of course, RetroLogic is not just a podcast, it's actually a bunch of podcasts now. So we also have our wider family of podcasts, including FilmLogic, with our friends Mike Wrights and Solo Something, and Tim, who are, of course, talking about film. And currently they are going through Janime. They are talking about anime, and specifically the most recent episode is on Howl's Moving Castle. Great movie. Love that movie. And of course, we also have RetroGroove, our podcast about music, featuring the likes of our very own Adam Caporello and Liam Davenport. And their most recent episode is called Damon Days, and it's a look at Damon Albarn, the lead singer of Blur and the Gorillaz. So you can check that out, and links to all that, I believe, is also on the website or the Discord. They all have their own channels. You can talk about all kinds of stuff about movies, music, all that stuff with those guys. Great people. We've had them on the show. They love games too. They just also love music and movies. Go figure. Like most people.
Yes. I hate music.
So, with all that housekeeping out of the way, I think it's time for some Prices Retro. So, if this is your first time playing The Price is Retro, here is how we play. I am going to list 4 or 5 games, and everyone has to guess how much the total lot is worth. Whoever is closest to the actual value wins that round. Everybody has a list, and everyone guesses on each other's list. At the end, the player that won the most rounds wins the episode, but watch out for our robot competitor, Deus Guess Machina. He averages all 3 of our guesses together and makes his own guess based on the average. So, with that said, Shannon, would you like to go first since you are our guest?
Sure. So I have a list of GameCube games. I've kind of been on a GameCube kick right now. Talk about that some more later, but so I don't know. This is probably not too terribly difficult of a list, but I just put some of my favorites together. These are all complete in box. First one is Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, aka the best Fire Emblem to date. The second one is Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures, Tales of Symphonia, X-Men Legends 2, and Lost Kingdoms 2.
Okay. John, would you like to go first?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay, I can go first. I've got my total in my head.
I can go first. It's fine. You want to go? Okay.
I'll go first. I got $430.
We're pretty close. I'm going to say 500.
All right. Well, John gets this one. The total according to price charting comes to $586.
586. I guess they've gone up. I thought the stuff was at least leveling off right now.
I think those have gone down a little bit.
Yeah, some of the stuff has gone down.
I'm really
some of the
out
stuff
of it.
has gone up a little bit. I think Fire Emblem actually increased again with the probably. I don't know if just the release of Engage.
It might be the series got a new sequel bump. Yeah.
Yep. Especially having Ike in it. But Fire Emblem $295. So I think that is up a little bit from the last time I had checked.
That was well above what I thought it was.
Yeah. Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures $89.
That one's come down.
Yeah, that one came down a little bit. Tales of Symphonia $34.
That one too.
Mm-hmm. And that could possibly be because the remake's coming out soon. So maybe
could be.
Maybe the desire to have the original. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Or it'll get a bump. We'll see. X-Men Legends 2, $21, which is a very, very affordable.
Was right on with
for
that.
Such a great game. And then Lost Kingdoms 2, $147.
147. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I will go ahead and present my list next. So I do apologize if this is a little bit out of left field. I'll go ahead and tip my hat just because you may be wondering what in the world are these games. These are all Xbox exclusives that only released in Japan. So they are all, of course, do not have North American prices. So usually I try to go with the North American price, but I just thought this was interesting.
So we have to guess in yen?
No. It's in dollar equivalent. It's what somebody would pay US dollars for this game.
All right.
I don't know if price charting gets data from Japan anyway. So I have Tenereza for the Xbox, and these are all going to be complete in box as well. So the first game, Tenereza. Second, Exoskeleton. Third, Thousand Land. Fourth, Nude at Natural Ultimate Digital Experiment. Yes, that's a real title. It's NUDE. It's an acronym that I guess stands for Natural Ultimate Digital Experiment. And lastly, Shin Megami Tensei 9. Note that 9 is spelled as a full word. So this is not the number 9. This is the word 9, but it is Nine. It is not the 9th Shin Megami Tensei game. It is a spin-off that for some reason is subtitled 9.
And what are all these on?
Xbox.
Xbox. Okay.
Yep. Xbox exclusives that only released in Japan. This is not a comprehensive list, but I think it's pretty close.
Yeah.
You'll notice Metal Wolf Chaos is not on here because I know I've used that one before.
Yeah, we've talked about it. Man. Let's see.
I mean, I can go first because this is just a complete guess. Because
I think I have to go first, right?
Oh, you got to go first. Oh yeah,
yes,
this will be my
because this is your only. Yep.
All right.
So I think I'm going to go 350.
350 for John. Okay.
And I had 300 written down.
And 300 for Shannon.
Yeah.
The ghost. He's the ghost.
I'm the ghost.
The ghost can beat the robot. So John is going to take this one as well.
Nice.
The total is above both of yours. It's $409.46. So Tenereza comes in at $109.99. Exoskeleton $93.63. Thousand Land $53.24. Nude at Natural Ultimate Digital Experiment at $102.91, and Shin Megami Tensei 9 at $49.69. So all close-ish to the same price, all $50 to $100 ish. Interestingly enough, which is kind of high for Xbox, but these are weird Xbox games. So yeah,
well, I can't imagine that was a fun list. Many copies sold.
Probably not, because there aren't that many Xboxes in Japan.
No.
That's right.
Nice. I think I clinched victory, but I'll do my list anyway.
Yep. Battle for second place here.
Yep. All right. So my list I just made on the fly, and it got real interesting as I was looking into it. So here we go. The first game on my list is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 for the Tap Wave Zodiac, complete in box.
Okay. I'm just going to pretend I know what a Tap Wave Zodiac is.
Okay, you'll be looking it up after the show, I promise you. Game number 2 is Tony Hawk's Underground 2 for the PC, complete in box.
For the PC?
For the PC.
PC.
All right. Game 3, Tony Hawk and Kelly Slater double pack for the Game Boy Advance, complete in box. And the last game is Tony Hawk for the N-Gage, complete in box.
For the complete in box N-Gage games, because I have a rough estimate in my head of what a complete in box N-Gage game should be. I can just adjust that based on how valuable I think Tony Hawk is. Well, Shannon, it's your turn to guess
mode.
first.
Yeah, you guys went hard mode on me. Yeah, especially with that first one, I don't even know where to begin. So I am going to go with $420.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna lowball it, which historically I tend to always guess low and too low, but I don't know. I'm just gonna guess 200.
All right. Well, the total for this lot is $289.40, which means Sam takes it.
Yep,
nice.
Because the robot would be the robot would be
the robot took that one. Yep.
These are like 300 something.
You're right.
He's a ghost robot.
Yep. On this one, he is. Yeah, he did. He got you guys. All righty.
Well, Jan.
Yeah, as I say, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 for the Tapwave Zodiac complete in box is $155.43. Tony Hawk Underground 2 for the PC complete in box is $54.44.
Wow, that's a lot higher than I thought it would be.
I know, that's why I threw it on.
Freaking like $12.
I know.
Well, I mean, PC games there's no market for.
Yeah, none.
Though to be fair, if you're talking complete, some PC games came with a lot of like just cool stuff.
Yeah, but they still usually are not valuable.
But yeah. That's interesting.
The third game, Tony Hawk and Kelly Slater double pack for the GBA completed box is $54.50. So only 6 cents more for the complete in box Game Boy Advance game, which is just insane.
Wow.
And then last, Tony Hawk for the N-Gage complete in box, $25.03. There's still no market for the N-Gage, apparently.
No, and I didn't go very high on that one. It was that first one. I had no idea where to go for that, whatever that was, that new wave, whatever. Spectrum.
New wave.
Yeah. I was like, at the end of the day, Tony Hawk games sell a lot, so they're not going to be like crazy expensive, even on an N-Gage, even on a.
I laughed because I had never heard of a Tapwave Zodiac, so I had to look it up while I was doing this list. So I said I learned something today too.
So Robot takes the round, but John takes the show with 2 wins, 1 for the Robot and none for the rest of us. Do you have a trivia card for us tonight, John?
Yes, I do. Let's see what kind of mess we have here. All right. Which 2 brand new Xbox consoles were released in 2020 and made up the 4th generation of the series?
So that was the 1, right? And
in 2020? That's the Xbox One X.
Yes, X, yes.
Yes.
Nope, that's the Xbox Series X and Series S.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, jeez. I can't keep track of this.
You got me with Microsoft's silly names.
It's the Xbox.
One Xbox box.
One
Xbox X. Series X box.
All right. Second question is, what is considered to be the best-selling video game for the PlayStation 4?
Oh gosh, I should probably know, but I don't.
Uncharted or no? Maybe not.
I mean, Uncharted, I think hit its peak in the PS3 days. Didn't it? But I think the last one was. Wasn't that a PS4 launch game?
Just think about this. What's a best-selling game for almost like every console?
Is it Gran Turismo?
Or no, I was going to think Grand Theft Auto 5.
It's Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
It's the
wow.
best-selling.
Yeah.
It's like one of the best-selling games ever on any console.
I was trying to think exclusive,
That's
or
what
something
you
like
guys
that.
are
But
never going to get
Yeah.
it with the exclusive game.
In Nintendo world, their exclusives are the best. All the best selling stuff usually.
Minecraft might have it.
Minecraft is not a full price game though, so that's a different different territory. Because
I don't think Grand Theft Auto 5 has been full price for a long time.
That's true too. That's true too.
Probably like 2 weeks after it came out, it's not full price any longer.
it's working for them, apparently.
Yeah.
We're apparently doing very poorly in trivia tonight, so
if you could
those were not
80
hard
copies.
questions. I show my ignorance of modern non-Nintendo stuff.
Yep.
I only care about PS1 and 2 games, man.
Well, you guys came around to the second question. I just had to corral you a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know if we would have gotten there without corralling.
No, probably not.
Let's take a quick break, and then we will move on to our show topic, which will be a quick highlight on Shannon's GameCube game bracket, followed by John and I's thoughts on the Analog Pocket. So stay tuned, and we'll see you after the break. Okay, so Shannon, you've been running a little bracket to determine once and for all what is the greatest GameCube game of all time. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I've been really on a GameCube kick again. And GameCube has just kind of always been something that's always kind of been special to me. I actually got my GameCube as a wedding gift. Just registered for it on a whim when my wife wasn't looking, and a buddy of mine bought it for me. And so it was just one of those things when you are newly married and don't have a lot of funds, you don't have a lot of games. So the ones I had became really pretty special during that time. And it's always just been one of those consoles that has always kind of had a little bit of specialness to me. And then I don't know what it is, but about a month or so ago, I just started like really pulling it out and playing it again a lot. And so I thought, hey, it'd be kind of fun to ask the Discord what some of their favorite GameCube games are. And I started developing a list, and I thought, well, let's see here. What is the best GameCube game out there? And so I took everybody's suggestions and watched a bunch of videos and put in, people's favorites listed from logs and hidden gems and all these things, and realized I had like over 100 games, and that was probably a little too many to manage. So cut it down to what I think is 64 of some of the best games on the system. And we're on the second round now. It just started the second round of voting. So definitely had some heartbreak after the first round when Fire Emblem didn't make it. I was pretty disappointed, lost by one vote.
What did it lose to?
I should have had this pulled up.
Oh yeah.
So we're this week's voting was 32 games, and we're trying to narrow it down to 16 now.
Yes. Yep. And so, I definitely. I'm pulling it up right now here. I determined that I wouldn't vote to try to keep this sort of okay, since I could see the results at any time.
So really,
yes,
Path of Radiance should have won, but just because you didn't vote, it lost.
I didn't vote, and it lost by 1 vote. So I never wanted to kind of break.
Well, you would have tied it.
I would have tied it, but then I could have just,
Usually, whenever I run my brackets, I don't vote either. That way, if there is a tie, then I'll vote and break the tie.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't want to create a tie, I guess, either. But it lost to Crazy Taxi. So Dan will be happy with that. I don't know how that happened.
I don't either.
I just got to think it's because very few people probably played that.
No, I think Dan just voted like 30 times.
It could be.
He created like 30 different email addresses so he could vote several times.
Hey, I like Crazy Taxi too, though. Oddly enough, though, that was the first game I ever played on the PlayStation 2. Weirdly enough, didn't have it on the GameCube. But yeah, it's interesting how doing a bracket like this, makes you think about it a little different. Because I remember in round 1, I'm trying to remember what the other game was. One of them was X-Men Legends 2, and it was the one I spent the most time thinking about. And neither one of these was one that I was like, this is going to go all the way to 1. But it was really hard for me to weigh them against each other.
It was up against the Mario baseball.
Mario Sluggers. Sluggers. Yeah. So neither one of those is really in my head as top GameCube game. But I do like both of them a lot. And it was just hard for me to decide between them. Because I thought they both deserved to move on, but it's at the same time, I know they're not going to make it that far. So that match mattered so much because I don't see them going much further. But
right,
yeah.
On average, around how many votes are you getting?
So the first round, I had 21
it's
votes.
Not bad.
No, and the second round here, I've had 19 so far. So
that's still pretty good.
More votes. So if you're listening to this, go in and vote.
It's about on par with what I got with the controller bracket.
Yeah. Don't you can't complain that your game didn't get picked if you don't go and vote. So
people, I don't think people realize how much work it takes to put together one of those brackets to scavenge all the box arts or whatever, and then rearrange them every time you do reset it.
Yep.
It takes a little while.
And plus, there's some heated matches this time. We got Animal Crossing going up against Pokemon Coliseum. We got Wind Waker versus Metroid Prime, which is throwing a lot of people for a loop a little bit, trying to have to pick between those two. I mean, for me, it's not that hard, but I understand.
I mean, I'm just saying, if Star Fox Adventures beats F-Zero GX, we know Dan is rigging it.
I might have voted for Star Fox in that one.
Oh man.
Hey, Star Fox Adventure is it's just a really good Zelda game. There's just no other way to put it.
You know what else is a really good Zelda game on GameCube? Wind Waker.
Well, I might have voted for that one too, but
Wind Waker is an excellent game, and all three Zelda games scored very, very, very high in the first round. Well, because
I'm just saying, we all know the real matchup that settles everything right here and now is Odama versus Crazy Taxi. I mean, whatever wins that is
going all the way.
Is going all the way.
Now, see, Sam, you got eliminated that decision for you. You would have had to pick between Fire Emblem and Odama.
That's true.
Crazy Taxi wouldn't have beaten.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting on the Discord hearing some of the discourse talking about Metroid Prime 2 versus Metroid Prime, even though they're not going up against each other at this point anyway. But yeah, there. I didn't realize that there was kind of a little bit of a division about that game.
There's a lot of fall off on Metroid Prime 2.
Yeah, I can't weigh in on it. I'm still pretty much, completely inexperienced when it comes to Metroid Prime. I rented the collection once. I did not make it very far, and that's it.
Well,
So
if you want
guess
to
I
play
played
it,
the first. I played the collection on Wii. I played the first game on the Wii collection with the motion controls.
you can
like
still get
first
it on the
hour.
Wii U if you have one for
I
a
do
very
not have a
limited
Wii
amount
U.
of time.
I sold my Wii U when I got my Switch. But that's life.
Mine doesn't leave my side. It's right here all the time.
But you know what I do have that I can play old games on is my analog pocket. And that is
Nice.
our other topic, since John and I have both gotten our pocket in after long times waiting, after a false alarm once on my end and a very confusing empty box being delivered to my door. I actually have a real pocket this time. And
I've got a little case that I
quite
printed
pleased
for
with
mine.
it. I am very happy with Analog handling that situation too. I don't actually 100% know or can prove what happened, but I believe that the initial delivery was stolen out of the box. I mean, I received a box that looked like it had been retaped, so I have to conclude somebody opened it and took what was inside. Analog did, fully replace the item at no cost, so they were very good about that. It was unfortunately like the worst possible time for it to happen too, because they shipped all these out and then closed for the holidays. So I had about like 2.5 weeks of not really getting any response from them, because I'm sure as a smaller company who had just, met their goal to ship everything by Christmas so people got stuff, people could put them in presents under trees. They were taking some well-deserved time off, but all the same, I had this issue where the thing that was supposed to be delivered to me wasn't, but they did get back to me, and I was very pleased to see that it arrived intact with no issues the second time around. So that was great. Good on them for customer service and managing that.
I'm kind of curious to see how many white ones are out there. It's like every time I see one somewhere, it's a black one.
That's true. Mm-hmm. I was just worried because anytime you get a white anything, it shows dirt more, if anything.
Especially
so I was like,
something you're holding in your hands.
And I also figured too that especially with because I would think they'd go gray like the original Game Boy.
Yeah, it's kind
of gray color.
I mean, I understand why they had fewer options, but because even with like the rest of their products, they usually have like 3 or 4 SKUs. But yeah,
then again, it might be hard to replicate that gray without unintentionally replicating the ugly yellow shade it turns over time. That's more the Super Nintendo. I don't think that happens much with Game Boys.
No, the Super Nintendo, the plastic that they used to make them had a like a fire retardant property to it.
Yeah,
and that's what makes that console turn colors.
A lot of people say it's because everybody was smoking, but that's not actually that is what the plastic does over time.
Yeah, just with any kind of UV light or just lots of light contact at all, it'll start yellowing.
But I guess other than the color, any thoughts on the actual pocket getting into your hands? I know we're not the first people to report on this, obviously.
Oh, no. I do enjoy all of the options that they give you for like screen filters and
they've got the Virtual Boy one in there, as I call it. I can't even remember what it's officially designated, but it's red and black.
Yep.
And it feels oddly appropriate to me to play Wario Land in that color palette.
It does.
Because it's the closest I'll get to playing Virtual Boy Wario Land, at least for a while.
I will say that just like the original Game Boy, like there is like some issues with playing it for long periods of time with larger hands.
Yep.
Like when you're a kid, when you're a kid, the Game Boy was amazing because your hands were like half the size and like it just fit well. Now that you have adult hands, like trying to play anything that's this wide, it just kind of creates problems over time.
And that's something
triggers are kind of uncomfortable to use sometimes.
Yeah, that's something I realized more so today. So I had a long travel day for work today. Spent a lot of time on planes, spent a lot of time playing with my analog pocket as a result. And that definitely did, like, I had some aching thumbs
some fatigue,
by the end of it. And it did make me think, like, I can totally understand, and I would not be surprised had they, developed it in two form factors and say one was more like a Game Boy Advance.
Yep.
I would almost prefer that, but I would not be surprised at all if everybody was ordering the standard Game Boy shape anyway. Just because of the nostalgia of that form factor, those dimensions.
I mean, as far as the quality improvements and like the screen is phenomenal. Like you'll never find a better screen, like pixel for pixel, that this screen will put out.
And it matters so much on a handheld device to have that, because the screen, you can't just plug it in. Well, you can plug it in elsewhere, but the primary, focus of the Pocket is to replicate a Game Boy and of playing it wherever you take it. And that's such a thing I didn't even realize mattered as much to me, because I love the Switch, but like the Switch is not really portable. It is, you can take it anywhere, but it's, it's like pulling out your laptop and playing games on it. That's almost what the Switch feels like, especially in comparison.
I don't know if it's just the size of the screen and like, how much you're getting out of that small screen display wise. Like it almost just makes your Switch screen, even the OLED, look kind of like it's not as crisp, Mm-hmm. The Analog Pocket is like just a magnificent piece. Like the screen is amazing. It's almost indescribable unless you're playing one in your hands. Like videos almost don't even do it justice, but I can definitely tell, there's even a big difference between that screen and the screen that's on your Switch, Yeah,
I have to
game that's similar.
I don't have any experience with the Pocket. I wish maybe someday.
Come on, Shannon.
I know. But just talking about the Switch, and yes, it's portable, but at the same time, earlier this month, I was on a plane for a few hours, and I actually had my Switch with me, and I had my Game Boy Advance with the modded screen, and I was looking forward to playing some time on the Switch, and I never pulled it out of my bag, because every time I was like, oh, but then I gotta get it out. I gotta get it, just like you were saying, almost like a laptop, even though it really is just pop it out and turn it on. But man, just popping out the Game Boy Advance and just having it, and it just feels, it's small, but it feels great in the hands. It just, and I found myself playing Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games the entire plane ride. So I get it.
And that's kind of what I was like. I think that if I had to choose between, if Analog put out two form factors and one was more Game Boy Advance-esque, I probably would have picked that, because that's my favorite format of a handheld device. Like it's just the 100%. Most comfortable. Like even, I have a Switch Lite. I even have some other, non-official gaming consoles like the Retroid Pocket this very game or very Switch Lite feel, and they feel good to play, but there's just something about like Game Boy Advance just kind of like fits in your hands like perfectly. Like there's something to it, you know. And I probably would have paid more even to get that format if it was available. I mean, the Analog Pocket's a pretty cheap device anyway when you look at it, like with what all you're getting compared to build quality and things like that. Like it's relatively cheap.
It's a large step up in quality. If you just want to play Game Boy games, like obviously you can find a used working Game Boy for what, like $60 now.
Yeah,
you might be pressed to find one that's like,
I know prices keep going up.
Not dead pixels or, you know, have some kind of issues. But again, you're also having to deal with batteries and...
Yeah, I mean, number one, you're already comparing new to used. And you're also, you know, if you wanted to get an intact Game Boy and then mod it, would be maybe a closer comparison to at least get like, the backlit screen.
And I've done these things. So I can tell you right now that by the time you buy a used Game Boy, if you don't have one...
And really, a Game Boy Advance is a better comparison because this is out of the gate. The Pocket is compatible with Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy.
Yes, but either way, if you buy a DMG, the original Game Boy, or a first generation Game Boy Advance, you're still going to be paying $150 minimum.
Just compare to a used Game Boy SP because Game Boy SPs have gotten expensive.
Yeah. The 101s are probably $130. So, and that's again,
and this is an improved quality, brand new, with extended capabilities, and we'll get into some more of that. I did have one other thing that I guess I don't know why I didn't realize this, but I just sort of assumed, since so much of the rest of the device is made to look like a Game Boy itself, is how the cartridge doesn't actually slide that far in to the slot on the back. And that, like, I don't know why that surprised me as much, but I was like, huh.
I also kind of don't like it as much.
I know, and I can't even explain why, but I don't like it.
I feel like it doesn't.
Why does this bother me?
The ability to I just
keep wanting to push it in further or something, you know. It's especially because like I was expecting it to, because it's not even
recessed.
The size, because I expected it to be the depth of a Game Boy Advance cartridge, you know, like a Game Boy Advance cartridge slot. Because I played the Game Boy Advance more than anything, and
it's actually the pins that connect to the cartridge. Actually come up farther than the body. Like if you put your finger across the back of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're further than the body.
It barely goes in. Yeah. And it's like...
We're talking maybe like 3 or 4 millimeters that it even goes into the system. So
because I guess to me it made sense playing... Because I played a lot of Game Boy games on my Game Boy Advance. And to me it made sense to expect... Maybe because I knew that it wasn't like an old school Game Boy where the cartridge is like completely covered, you know, as it went back, pretty much except for the little Nintendo label above would stick up,
which was also there.
But I was expecting everything above to match the exact like stick out, the exact like amount that a Game Boy cartridge sticks out above the edge of the Game Boy Advance. I don't know why I expected that, but it was just such a firm expectation in my mind that it surprised me when I'm like, wait a minute, no. I can see most of my Game Boy Advance cartridge.
Yeah, it can't because of the shoulder buttons. Like they would have had to like probably redesign how that works, and the shoulder buttons are already pretty small to begin with.
It would be even more uncomfortable if you had like some weird recess for the shoulder buttons, and then everything else was covered.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's why you don't get that. But yeah, there's just some like discomfort to it.
I was curious too if it was maybe maybe for some people it's like, oh, this makes it easier to like show off what I'm playing. Like you can actually see, because you can see like the whole label, right? Of even a Game Boy Advance game from the back of it. Like there it is, DK King of
That's
Swing.
how far. Yeah, that's how far it goes. It's not very far.
Yeah,
Wow.
it barely covers any of the cartridge because
Now, do you think
as
that-
John said, the pins stick up. They almost protrude from the back. There's not really
aren't
a
there
recess
supposed
at all.
to be ways to, or add-ons or whatever to it?
There's
to be able to play?
adapters.
Yes, cartridge adapters.
So are those? Does that maybe have anything to do with it? The way those will connect.
I think it's more the shoulder buttons because the adapters go up like a I can show you. They go up like a Game Boy game at the base, and then they open up at the top to allow for a larger game to go in.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like
Oh,
yeah.
So it's about the size of a Game Boy Advance.
Yeah,
because I have like the Master System adapter for the Mega SG, for example, and
So-
that works the same way.
So yeah, that's what it'll look like with the. And then whenever you stick it in, this isn't very good for like podcasting, but just showing Shannon here now.
Picture in your mind.
Now,
Game
see,
Gear
no,
game
so
sticks
there
out
it will
above.
stick up. So
Yeah, so
I
it does
guess-
add length, I guess, to the
I guess
the whole
so.
apparatus.
If they had put it up any higher, then that would have been way high
And
up.
if you use the
Behind you in that.
adapters, it eliminates the shoulder buttons. It's like there's you
okay.
can't even.
Oh,
Can't even get
that
to 'em.
that is interesting. It's a bit of a flaw.
With the Game Gear, you won't ever need the shoulder buttons.
Yeah, so the adapters they have are for Game Gear, TurboGrafx, right?
Yep, TurboGrafx,
TurboGrafx,
Lynx, and Pocket
Lynx,
Color, Neo Geo.
and Neo Geo Pocket Color, and none of those systems have shoulder buttons anyway.
Nope.
So there you go.
Which I have all of the adapters
I
on the
actually
way. At some
don't
point.
know off the top of my head. Is there a way to remap buttons at a system level? I don't think I've seen.
I don't think so.
There is.
Not,
I haven't
with
looked for it.
Not with the original software. I'm sure if you modify it, there might be a way.
And that's true. I'm running custom firmware, and that is a good segue anyway.
There you go.
Even just on the topic of playing more than just Game Boy games. This is something that's been a huge thing for me, especially. And I shared links in our Discord about... I basically just followed a video tutorial on how to get it all up and running. So there is, of course, as with many of analog systems, when it comes to particularly the ability to boot games off of digital storage, that is usually something you have to go through. It's a jailbreak, basically. And
it's an authorized jailbreak,
well,
though.
yeah. As I understand it, with analog stuff, the jailbreak is actually developed by the same people who programmed the FPGA cores for the system. So it is, and it is very easy to install. You load the correct files onto an SD card. You put the SD card in. It is exactly the same way you update the firmware normally. But you can do that to upload custom firmware. And because this is an open FPGA system, so this is open source field programmable gate array programs, there are a wide variety at this point of open source cores for the Pocket, including quite a lot. Obviously, these will allow you to play games. You will need ROM files to actually play the games. This is just sort of the code for the ability to run them. This is like an emulator, right? An emulator without a ROM, you can't really do anything with. But if you happen to have, right? Yeah, they do have to be, and that is going to look different based on what you have. So a couple things though. So I've been running that, right? And the first thing to look into is, can I just run Game Boy games off of an SD card? And that's really a big deal on a portable system to me. I've done something similar with Super Nintendo, and it's kind of nice to have the convenience of like everything. It's more just for the backup, though, for me, to have a backup of things, to have an SD card with my Super Nintendo collection on it, backed up from my own cartridges. I would emphasize here. However else you get ROMs, that's not my business. But but okay, something like the GB operator, which we've talked about before, from Epilogue, not to be confused with Analog, different company, similar sounding name. That allows you to back up ROMs. You put your Game Boy cartridge in the operator, and you hit download game on the program on your computer, and you choose a file to save it to. You can copy that file to an SD card. You put that mini SD card in your Analog Pocket. You load the Game Boy Core, or the Game Boy Color Core, or the Game Boy Advance Core, and you can load that game. It's kind of a nice thing for a portable system because, as I said, if you're trying to take this with you, in as compact a form as possible, maybe you're not on an airplane, but maybe you're just going out wherever, you want to be able to fit it in your pocket, and then you have your whole library with you, right? Because it's pretty easy to fit all your Game Boy games on a 128 gigabyte mini SD card.
Oh, you can fit it
Game
on
Boy
like
games.
8 gigabyte.
Game Boy games are not that data intensive. There's no 4K textures there, so that's really cool. One of the things that custom firmware also lets you do is if you convert them to .pocket files. So normally a ROM file is going to be a .gb extension for a Game Boy game, for example. If it's a .pocket file, which is what people can do if you're messing around with some of the custom tools to create your own games for the Pocket, you would create a Pocket file. That is something that the Analog Pocket can recognize and use some of its own features with, such as those visual filters, such as the ability to go to sleep and resume from sleep. Note that if you actually put a Game Boy cartridge in, you can do all this stuff. But if you try to load off of an SD card, you won't be able to use that. You won't be able to put the system to sleep and pick up your game where you left off. You won't be able to use the filters if you're trying to load a ROM from an SD card, unless you convert that ROM to a .pocket file. Then you'll be able to do that. You will have to go through the GB Studio and run it through GB Studio, which is basically the sort of custom game maker tool that they have built in. So that's an interesting thing you can do. And, the tutorial I went into has some links. There's a utility someone created. You can basically, through a browser, convert your files. It does actually convert the files, as I understand it. You're not engaging in some plausibly deniable piracy by comparing a file to another file and downloading it. It does actually do a patching. So, it's all done in as above board a way as is possible.
And really, you mentioned like the Super Nintendo files. Like,
yes,
this system was almost developed with this in mind, because none of these other consoles, including the Game Boy or Game Boy Advance, have 4 face buttons.
Right.
And the Analog
so
Pocket does.
You will notice the Pocket has a start, select, the analog button, which is kind of like a home button, control pad, 4 face buttons, and 2 an L and R button. Right. I mean, the Game Boy Advance has an L and R button, but it doesn't have 4 face buttons. Nope. So that's the other big thing is when you start running these open source cores. They have cores for Super Nintendo. They have cores for Sega Genesis. They actually have a lot more than that. Most of what I've been using is the Super Nintendo, because those are a lot of games I actually have. Through the Super NT, same kind of jailbreak situation. I have the capability to back up my cartridges, so I have plenty of those. For the Sega, as I've mentioned before, if you buy the Genesis Classics collection on PC, all those ROM files are just a folder. It's not encrypted or anything. You can just copy them and move them and back them up wherever you want. Sega apparently is just cool with that. Most of them were not ready to go right out of the box because they were actually the wrong extension type. But all I had to do was rename them. I didn't have to actually modify the files themselves. I had to rename them from a .68K file to a .bin file. And then the Pocket was able to recognize them and run them no problem. I haven't tested every game I have, but they all show up on the list. I played some Streets of Rage. It was fun. So there you go. And I mean, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. If you go through this, I mean, you'll see arcade games have individualized cores. So there's a core for Donkey Kong on here. There's a core for Dig Dug on here. A lot of the most famous arcade games. You've got stuff like Amiga 500, ColecoVision, Atari 7800, Master System, Neo Geo, NES, PC Engine, SG 1000. There is also a Super Game Boy core, which I have used because that you can run GB files with. And so in a sort of weird meta inception, you can play the Super Game Boy version of Donkey Kong 94 on a handheld system, which does eat up even more of your precious screen real estate. But you know what? It's worth it because that's the best way to play Donkey Kong 94.
That's all right. The screen's already way double the size of a normal Game Boy screen. So,
I mean, the Game Boy Advance does that too.
Yeah, they've got a Wonder Swan core on here for the Wonder Swan color.
Nice.
There's a Pokemon Mini core as well. So I don't know how you get the file for that, but that's the little Pokemon Tamagotchi thing.
Yeah, how you pull the file from a
I don't know
Pokemon
how you get
Mini.
the file. I don't know how you do that legally. But and so another thing though that I should mention that I was, because this is important to me, and I know some people are like, well, just pirate stuff. You're an idiot. But to me, it's important to find out, okay, what do I have to do to actually get stuff in a way that is, at least closer to what follows the law. And, another thing I was able to do by hacking my 3DS was to back up those files that I bought from the eShop onto an SD card and import them and put them so I can play them on the Pocket now, which is really nice, especially just to have a way to back them up because the eShop is closing. But I can play games that's the only way I own them, right? So a game like Lufia: The Legend Returns, the Game Boy Lufia. I don't have that game on a cartridge. But I did buy it on the eShop, and this is a way for me to preserve it. Hacking my 3DS is a way to preserve it, but this is a way I can play that preserved game if my 3DS stops working one day, right? So that's something that's really important to me as well. As I really do think there are a lot of, I guess in the collector world, there's a lot of boo-hoo, digital media is bad, but there's a lot of advantages to it. Even when it comes to things like preservation, it's just that, the unfortunate circumstances of when you try to actually follow the law can get in the way. Or it's a lot harder than just downloading the thing illegally. I realize that. I'm just, doing what I can with the situation at hand. But yes, I realize it's way easier to just download stuff somebody else uploaded than to hack your own 3DS. Despite the memes, it's actually not that easy of a process.
Nice.
That's about all I had to say on the custom firmware. I think it's really cool. I recommend it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. One of the other things that was a benefit from going through that process, it did pretty up the core menu as well with some nice little artwork of the actual consoles. So when I go to boot the Super Nintendo, it actually shows a nice picture of a Super Nintendo for me. So that's cool. And the place I got that from actually has alternate versions. If you want a Super Nintendo that looks like the one you Europeans had, it'll have that instead.
Now if they would just ship those other adapters.
Yeah. I think I have an adapter set on order, but I'm just happy to have the base pocket at the moment.
Yeah, you can buy a dock. I have a dock. I have never used it. In fact, I've had my dock for over a year now.
Yeah, I did not get the dock because I figured anything I would use that for, I have the GB operator. Like that's an easy way for me to like stream Game Boy games. So, and I could even, I guess if I really wanted to like just output to a TV, but
I think it's more or less just the collector in me that, they offered it.
So
I wanted to grab it.
I will say, too, the ability to charge it, because I have noticed it takes a long time. The battery life is good, but it does take a long time to charge.
It does.
Like,
so if you have the dock, you can just kind of set it on there, and when you're not using it.
When it came to me, it had like 30% in the battery, and I was like, that's great. And I was like messing around with it like all weekend and plugging it in, unplugging it. I don't think it ever got to full until that Monday, and I had to leave it plugged in like the entire workday before it hit 100%. So,
wow.
But yeah, I mean that's the Analog Pocket. It's certainly been, just about everything it's cracked up to be. To be honest, I'm pretty happy. At the end of the day, like the games are what matters, and however you play them, they're still fun. But it does seem like a good investment. And if you need to be sold on it, like I said, custom firmware, get your Super Nintendo games on it. You have Plock in your pocket. On your Analog Pocket, it's an Analog Plocket.
Yes.
Nice.
I'll just leave you with that.
I will say, if you do buy a Pocket and you want the hard case that they offer in the store, make sure you buy it when you buy your Pocket, because if you try to buy it later by itself, they charge you $20 to ship it to your house.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the hard case. I don't know.
Well,
the clear look was just like, I don't know about this.
I bought a soft case for mine, and then I kind of got worried about it because the screen
I got a little like fabric sleeve.
Yeah, that's what I had.
That I found.
That's what I have right here first.
It's not terribly protective, but to me, it's more about concealing it. Maybe I'm just a little paranoid about somebody stealing it because it already happened once before I even owned it. But
I found a file online. I 3D printed my own hard case. It's got like a little magnetic lid.
That one looks nice. Yeah.
So if you want one, let me know. I'll print you one out.
I might take you up on that. I don't know. I could even do that and keep this, because this is nice because I can put some games in.
Hard case just goes right in the soft case. That way, if I drop it or if my kids get a hold of it or something, it's safe.
It's like a cheesy gordita crunch.
That's right.
Nice.
So, any other closing thoughts, Shannon? I know you don't have one. I don't know if you're just jealous now.
I got FOMO going on now.
Oh. Unfortunately, if you place an order now, you'll probably still be waiting a long time.
Yep.
Eventually, they'll be readily available.
I will say I did put it in order today for the GB operator. So I am very much looking forward to having one finally.
Yep,
Good deal.
that is a pretty affordable thing for the Game Boy collector, and certainly that's how I actually got all these Game Boy games onto an SD card. So, really cool thing to have. We do have some community couch questions. There's quite a few this week, so we'll just jump right in. John, would you like to take that first one from the ambassador?
Sure. He asks, you can exclusively play one of these niche genres for the whole year of 2023. Which one do you play? Also assumes that you get the hardware and software to achieve the goal. So, first option A is puzzle-solving first-person games. B is a Kinect and PS Move motion games. C is Tetris, Columns, and Puyo-type puzzles. D is kart racers based on cartoon and movie franchises. And E, any game based on Shonen Jump licenses.
Huh. I suppose they'd have to go Tetris just to do the next on topic
There
retro.
you go. You'd
game,
miss on
right?
topic retro if you don't pick
That's
C.
right.
I mean, I think that's where I land too, but A has some appeal, which is odd for me to say. I do really like Portal. I really
I was
like
gonna
Portal
say.
2. After that, though, I don't know what there is. And as a general rule, I don't like first-person games.
Yeah,
So
me either.
I'm like, I don't know.
There's some good first-person puzzle-solving games on the Switch. I'd be hard-pressed to name them right now, but I know that they exist.
I mean, would you be able to include something like Myst in that?
Yeah. Well, Myst isn't first-person. Is it?
Well, I don't know. You don't see a character.
I mean, it kind of is.
It kind of is in a way because you're not.
Yeah, but it's more like Myst is more like point and click, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
you
it
don't
kind of
see a character.
assumes a first person. you know?
I'll give you that,
You,
but I think
you
that's
are
stretching
definitely you are controlling a character moving from place to place. So
That's right.
Yeah, but you're not controlling their point of view though necessarily. Like there's no camera options or anything. Like I think of first person games like where you can move the camera and all that stuff.
I did think about B as well. I have like no experience with the Connect and Move though. I don't even know what you play on that. I just know that as a rule about myself, I have an appreciation for weird controls and weird control schemes and anything that just innovates with control. So if there's stuff I don't know about on Connect and Move that is actually interesting and genuinely good, then I want to know about it.
I think there's the Connect Star Wars game where you can like have dance offs as different Star Wars characters or something like that. I've never played it, but I'm sure that would be worth some memes.
The galaxy is
That'll be worth
decided by a
something.
dance off.
Right.
As we know. All right, the next question comes from Presto, who has a couple questions to write in this week. The first one is, what is your biggest gaming pet peeve? Mine is people calling it Kirby and the Forgotten Lands instead of Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
I wonder who he's talking about.
No idea.
I'm pretty sure this is aimed right at Dan. 'Cause I'm pretty sure he had been calling it Forgotten Lands for a while.
I think so.
I think one time he even called it maybe the Forgotten World. I don't remember. Dan gets really confused with names sometimes.
Well, I'm pretty sure everybody had a like Mandela effect kind of situation with Balan Wonderworld, because I think everybody just agreed it should have been called Balan Wonderland
It
and
should
started
have,
calling
yeah.
it that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's your pet peeve?
I mean, I have a lot. I wasn't sure how to take this initially, if it was like just gaming culture type stuff. People can be annoying in general, or just stuff in games. Because there's a lot of stuff in games that can be a pet peeve too. But I'd say to be more general about it is just any time people just throw words around without thinking about what they mean. So it's a lot of the like, not necessarily hyperbole, but when people just throw around a word like, this game is cinematic, and they just mean that it's good. And I'm like, I don't even want games to be cinematic.
You must be watching a lot of the Game Awards.
Yeah. Right. There's a lot of the Game Awards is pretty much a continuous stream of my pet peeves. Just watch the Game Awards. That's
Game Award is
the answer to this question for me. Yeah, but I mean stuff like cinematic, or I mean I think it was over on All In's Discord. I was talking about people talk about tight controls, and they don't seem to have any idea what that should mean. Like they just kind of are like, this game's good, so I'm gonna say it has tight controls, and I'm like, well, because to me that should mean something really specific about like, okay, like the controls are very precise, and they require precision from the player because your character in the game does precisely what you input, and whether that's good or bad. But like, I think people just throw those words around, so it becomes just kind of nondescript. I guess a lot of this boils down to like the armchair criticism. Like everybody thinks they're a critic now, and they kind of imitate criticism without actually doing it. They just have opinions and they got to get them out there, which is understandable, but I don't know. That could be a whole episode on its own.
Could be, yeah. I think my biggest one is probably just rush development times for games. And like, we get these broken games that you can't even complete until they get a patch. Like, it's happened several times just in the last little bit,
It's a horrible sign for game preservation too.
It is, and it's
your physical release doesn't work unless it gets patched.
Exactly. I mean, I know that you can't go back to the times where you basically got a physical media and that's what you got. Like, we're not there. It's just so easy to go in and patch something now. It's really almost. It's not necessarily a crutch, but like, I think sometimes companies lean on it way more than they should. Like, I'd really like to see a more finished product right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And if that means that you push your deadline back, then that's what it means. Like, I'd rather have it right the first time than to get you're really going to do more damage in my mind by releasing a unfinished game with the hopes that it will be finished later, because I'm probably not going to play it again when the patch actually does come out. Probably already been burned by it to where I don't want to go back. So,
yeah.
And in today's age, like, you almost can't afford to do that because you really only get a small period of, spotlight on your game as it is, because there's 25 new games coming out every day. You almost can't afford to put out a product that doesn't work out of the gate. So people just move on to the next one, So
yeah, I think mine that I was thinking of kind of is right along that same lines is there's nothing more annoying to me right now than getting my game home, popping it into the system to play, and oh wait, I gotta spend the next hour downloading a patch so I can even play it. And it just kind of loses that magic of as a kid opening up that Nintendo game or that Super Nintendo game, popping it in, turning it on, and you're golden. You're playing. And now it's like, I have to, especially I'll just call it PlayStation, and I'm sure it's I don't have an Xbox, but I'm sure it's the same way. We're gonna take everything on this disc, and basically you got to download it to your system, and then we got to patch it. So, you can play this game in about an hour and a half, and it's just kind of irritating.
It's so bad because now it's like the norm. Like, it even has a name, like a day one patch is expected almost.
Yep.
Well, and it's weird how we've regressed over time from, the cartridge-based games that didn't even require an install to the disc-based games that had to install to now.
Yeah, and it's slowly like
games that have to install and download and patch.
Yep. Well, like, I remember PlayStation 3 was like the time period where you could choose to install either a portion of the game or the majority of the game to try to increase, speed up load times. And now you have, in the last generation with PS4, it was like a mandatory, like you're going to download half this game disc, or whether you want to or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then with PS5, it's like at this point, you almost might as well just buy a digital game. Like I have probably 15 PS5 games, and 20 years down the line, if there's no way to download the content, those discs are just discs. Like they're Frisbees. Like I can't do anything with them.
Right. Yep.
Well, Presto has 2 more questions. So this is question number 2 then. For both Retro and FilmLogic. So I guess you'll have to tune into FilmLogic to see their answers. If you were forced to choose, would you rather make the world lose 15 years of video games? The newest games you see will be from 15 years ago. Or lose 15 years of movies? Perhaps expected for our show, I say ditch the movies and keep the games.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this because I listened to their latest episode. I think it was their latest one where they actually were answering this one. And for me, I lean the same way. I mean, I think, well, I'd lose most of the Marvel stuff, but I'd also lose, some of the newer Star Wars stuff. So maybe that's not so bad. But I prefer a lot of retro games anyway. So I think the biggest loss for me personally would be Breath of the Wild. But man, I'd still have I would never run out of things to play. So I'd say if I had to choose, I'd get rid of the movie, get rid of the newer games.
Yeah, I think Dan brought up in the Discord, losing Splatoon makes that an easy choice. Don't lose Splatoon. Give up all the movies for Splatoon.
I think I'd have to go movies too, just because, with movies anymore, like with limited time anyway, but I watch a movie once and I never revisit. So I could really just almost go without movies to some extent, and games have almost kind of taken the place of movies. They're almost better at storytelling because you have more time with them.
They've definitely replaced TV for me. Movies I can make some time for occasionally because a single movie is not a huge investment.
I mean, I definitely know I'm not running out to go watch movies at the theater any longer like I used to.
Yeah.
Like it was almost mandatory.
That habit broke for a lot of people, I think, recently. But
yeah.
True.
And Presto's last question, for important reasons. What are your best pickup lines?
I don't know. Mine would be very rusty. I haven't had to use any pickup lines in almost 20 years.
I don't think I could even come up with one.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever was able to come up with one. I was very fortunate. My wife was the one who asked me out initially. So yeah, that helped because I didn't have a game then. I'm sure I don't have a game now. So
well, if you're expecting anything different from me, there's a reason I'm spending Valentine's Day streaming Hamtaro Heartbreak.
That might be your best pickup line.
That's right.
It might be. Come
watch me play Hamtaro.
I think Dan had a pretty good one that he posted in the Discord, I believe. It was something about Donkey Kong, of course.
Right.
Yeah. What did he say? He did say something.
Lest we leave it up. Are you Master Necky? Because you just gave me a huge banana. Followed by a gif of DK with the giant banana giving the thumbs up. So there you go.
That's better than the conversation we had in Discord about whenever I asked if there was anybody that wanted to do the show for Smash Bros. And Dan said something about fearing the clap, and I was like, I'm pretty sure most people fear the clap.
He's obviously talking about Donkey Kong's Smash Attack.
Exactly.
For those who didn't pick that up.
It's always about Donkey Kong with Dan.
So our last question for the week comes from Shannon. You didn't know you were going to be on the show when you asked this question,
I know.
did you? Well, you can ask it to us in person right now.
Yeah. So my question is just if you could reform any defunct developer, what would it be, and what game would you want them to make? So, for instance, for myself, I would love to see Hudson Soft. I know that they're sort of part of Konami, correct? If I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, but Konami isn't really even...
Konami isn't, exactly.
Is Konami really still around?
Yeah,
Konami's
exactly.
defunct too. They need to be brought back themselves.
That was defunct too. I would love to see like a new Adventure Island, or just to kind of see what they would do with that. Or for me, I love Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom game, so some kind of, it wouldn't necessarily have to be exact sequel or anything like that, but some kind of spiritual successor to that. I just there's a lot of different games. Lode Runner, that we get every now and then. You kind of get a collection, but I would love to see them take some of those and remake them and kind of see what we'd get.
Yeah, this is a pretty tough question for me to answer, because I mean, if you've looked at my developer retrospectives, I mean, every one of those could be an answer to this, right?
Yep.
I mean, I guess Sunsoft is sort of back, so there you go. We'll see what that really holds in the future. But I mean, certainly Quintet is another one that faded, and I don't necessarily intentionally pick defunct developers, but I do try to highlight, ones that are a little under the radar. Not the Konamis or the Capcoms. I might do Capcom at some point, though. I've enjoyed a lot of Capcom games. That would have to be like a multi-post something just to tackle that beast.
Are you going to pick Treasure for this one?
I'm going to have to go with Treasure, and really, it's not even so much that. That I want them to continue their games, because part of Treasure's whole thing was that they didn't really do sequels. They kind of started to in their last days when they were kind of flagging.
That might have taken them out.
It kind of, and I kind of see it as them like sort of throwing in the towel, looking for an exit, like maybe our time is done. But I think if Treasure could come back, I mean, so much of their, it was formed by old Konami employees that were like, we don't want to spend all our time making Contra and Castlevania games, even though they were really good at it. If they were to do something close to their form, I mean, stick with what they know, which is run and gun type games. I think run and gun and shoot 'em ups, like every game of theirs has some kind of shoot 'em up element to it. I would definitely like to see something in the vein of Gunstar Heroes or Alien Soldier the most. Not a direct sequel, but kind of like Alien Soldier was to Gunstar Heroes, like a game that definitely takes some inspiration, but also turns it in a new direction. Just to kind of hone in on, okay, we're really good at games where you shoot things and fight crazy bosses. So another game like that with maybe another all new version of Seven Force in it to fight, that would be pretty great.
Yeah, I think for me it's kind of a weird one, but I think I would. It's not necessarily a defunct developer, but it's a developer that merged with another one a long time ago, and you definitely don't see as many of its games as you do the other one. But if I could go back, I think I would prevent Enix from being absorbed by Square. Because a lot of Enix games never seen the light of day.
If that happened, Quintet would probably still be around.
That's what I'm saying.
Because all their stuff was published by Enix, and they really fell out of the... I mean, this is in my post, but they really fell out of the limelight once Enix actually... They made an announcement back in like the 90s that they were not going to publish any games in North America anymore. And that basically that's the reason Terra Enigma didn't release here, because Enix was like, nope, no more US. We're not touching North American stuff anymore. And Quintet was like left high and dry, like, well, I guess we can't release our game in North America because we got to find a new publisher now. And the N64 is already out now that our localization's done, so nobody wants to publish this. So really Enix kind of killed Quintet. I don't know what would have happened. They stuck around and they released some very weird Japan only games like Planet Wake Up.
And I think by that time, like, Enix was already probably starting to struggle, is why we got that merger. But like, there was a lot of good like Enix games that just once they merged, like, just died. Like everything that Square was putting out, like, it seems like they just kind of took all their manpower and said, hey, we're going to develop these games. Pretty much the only one that's still being made today that I know of is Dragon Quest.
Yep.
Everything else kind of got pushed off to the side.
It's definitely true.
They got absorbed and said, hey, you're going to make Final Fantasy games now. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well, be careful what you wish for, because I could see a million ways they could ruin Dragon Quest with some of the stuff they've put out about this next one.
I don't want to think that, Sam.
Well, that's what I think. Dragon Quest has made it as far as it has because they've, for large parts, left it untouched. Like, while the gameplay stays the same, they just kind of update the story, update the graphics, change a few things, but people like Dragon Quest because it's Dragon Quest. Like, you don't have to reinvent the box every time like they do with Final Fantasy.
Right.
Well, even Final Fantasy is very much, departed from, what it used to be.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, they just keep
at this point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They've changed it. Even in their, Final Fantasy, after Final Fantasy 6, it was basically like you were getting a different game every time you played one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
especially once you hit past 10, like it even got more so.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, if maybe if Square could have held on, or Enix could have held on, maybe we would have seen, because they definitely seem like they were more creative out of the two. Like, you got all kinds of weird Enix games.
Mm-hmm.
Still, one of my favorite Super Nintendo games is Evo, and it's just very unique. Like, you don't see a whole lot of other games like that. Well, you do more so now, but at that time, no.
Yeah, it's a good answer.
Yep. Definitely a lot of any of those, and it's it isn't always interesting thinking about developers like that and kind of indie developers today, in that there are so many indies that kind of make a name for themselves, imitating some of that stuff we lost, coming at it as fans that understand what was so appealing about it. So many of those that fill in the gap. So, you lose some of that, some of those people who are so talented, but it does seem there is, nature abhors a vacuum kind of thing going on, that, Nintendo stops making Paper Mario, then, or making Paper Mario the way we remember it, we get
Somebody
Bug
picks
Fables.
it up. Yep.
Or we get a War Groove instead of Advance Wars, and then Advance Wars comes back anyway.
Well,
kinda,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Gets announced but never releases.
You just wait and see, right? And you always have the classics, right? Hopefully they remain reasonably accessible.
And even what we're getting is the classics. hopefully this does well when it does finally get to come out, and maybe we'll get a new Advance Wars game. They can call it Switch Wars. I don't care.
Well, I mean, yeah, and that is why, and that goes back to why I'd pick Treasure, because they were so firm in that early on. Like, they're like, we don't want to just churn out sequels. We want to keep making, and they were clear about, like, they improved on what they were good at and what they knew worked, but they were not, so restricted by the sequels. And I think the industry needs more. Every industry needs more of that. You talk about film, it's even worse. The everything's a sequel or a reboot. But I don't want to rehash that whole old hat. That could be another episode. I think it was another episode.
It was another
if I'm
different
remembering
episode.
Correctly.
I kind of wish the Advance Wars, like the Wars series, would have kept the deal, the ball rolling with the DS releases and call them DS Wars.
Right.
Well, it was still called. It was called Advance Wars Dual Strike. So they were
one of them
playing
was,
with it. Yeah.
There was two of them. Days of
And then
Ruin has
Days of
absolutely nothing to do
Ruin.
with.
Yeah. Other than the word days starts with D and ends with S.
Now you're stretching.
Yeah. It's not as clever as like Kirby Triple Deluxe, right?
Yeah,
because it was Triple Deluxe 3D.
You had Famicom Wars, and then they had Game Boy
3DS.
Wars. And then I think there was one for the Super Nintendo and our Super Famicom over there. We didn't get it till Game Boy Advance, but that's why it's Advance Wars. It's on the Game Boy Advance.
Battalion Wars, and we had Battalion Wars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Should have been Wii Wars. Wii Wars.
Wii Wars? No.
Wii Wars.
No.
Well, I guess the first one was on GameCube, so I don't know. How would you? Cube Wars.
Well, any other closing comments on that? Other defunct developers we want to bring back? Or
I think I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to the RetroLogic podcast. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, check us out on Twitter and Instagram at RetroLogic Games. You are also welcome to jump into our friendly and 100% non-toxic Discord community. The link is in the Twitter bio, and you can find everything on our website, retrologic.games. Shannon, do you have anything you want to plug other than the GameCube tournament bracket?
I guess a little. I do sort of try to get on and stream on Twitch. Let's see here.
That's how I saw Princess Tomato.
SpiderShan 8. That's right. I try to stream some games that aren't as popular or well known, or in the case
after
of
my own heart,
the Mystic Quest, aren't always held in high regard. So yeah, I just like finding some kind of weird stuff, and I'm just not the most regular at getting on there to stream. I need to get better about that one of these days. But so yeah, Twitch TV /SpiderShan8, I believe. Other than that, I'm active on the Discord, and that's about it. I don't do any other social media, so got nothing else there. And I do have a YouTube, which is also SpiderShan. You should be able to find me on there. And that's where I put the video on demand after streaming. So yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, from John, from Shannon, and I, have a wonderful night, and goodbye.
Bye now.
Anybody need to go to the bathroom or anything? I mean, Dan always asks.
Did Dan make sure you had to say that right? It's
yes.
He asks all the time. I think secretly he has to go to the bathroom a lot, so he just like he has to ask.
He projects it onto other people.
It's funny because like anytime we have Adam on, he doesn't ask, and Adam's like trying to like run to the bathroom while we're in the middle of something.
Well, I think that's how it started, right? Because Adam just went. It was like episode 2.
Yeah,
and like Adam just went like during the show, like, "Hey man, nature's calling." So I think that's why Dan makes a point to ask every time now. And I'm always like, "No, I don't go to the bathroom, man. Oh, I'm just that efficient."
That's right.
I only take in what my body needs.
For the long time, it was a joke because I'm stuck in my basement because I close off the doorway with a big foam blanking, like it's like basically like a false door that's made out of foam. And I didn't have a bathroom down here for the longest time because I was remodeling. So he's always like, "Oh yeah, you can't go to the bathroom. You have a bottle or a can or something down there."